Footage has surfaced of Sabrina Ionescu justifying these referees making horrendous calls.
Well. Sabrina Ionescu just stepped in at big time. Fresh footage surfaced of her defending the same referees who've been dishing out questionable calls all season. The same refs who somehow always appear to favor certain teams while others get the short end of the whistle. Although Sabrina believed she was being clever, this backfired horribly. Before we dissect this, please leave a comment and let me know if you believe Sabrina was well-informed when she made these remarks or if the timing was just terrible.
One, officiating is a lot different. So I would say that is a separate but similar part. Like when you watch even like NBA or men's college, your star players get any call. Like you can like touch them with a little fingernail. They're going to the free throw line. In the W, they don't care. Like you can be averaging 30, you could be coming off the bench. You're not really getting the benefit of the doubt on a whistle. And I think that's kind of an adjustment too from college to the WNBA is like, it's just hard-nosed, physical, all the hand checks. Like there are no hand check calls. Like as a point guard in college, if someone reaches and hits, you're getting that call. In the W.
This is what transpired. About 9 days ago, Sabrina Ionescu went on a podcast where she opted to play defense attorney for WNBA refs. Now, given what we've all seen this season, the timing of this couldn't be worse. However, let's examine what she said in detail and the reasons it's creating such a stir in the basketball community.
Cheryl Reed was the first one to expose it. She let it be known, bruh. The New York Liberty definitely have a special whistle. They don't call nothing, bro. I mean, they do all type of stuff. They can literally clothesline a player going up for a layup, and a referee will look at it.
In essence, Sabrina made the case that WNBA referees do not treat players like stars like NBA referees do. According to her, a star player in the men's game is going to the free throw line if you hardly touch them with your fingernail. But in the WNBA, according to Sabrina, it doesn't matter. If you're averaging 30 points or coming off the bench, you're not receiving those favorable calls. She portrayed this vision of a league where physicality reigns supreme and nobody gets special treatment.
Here's the problem, though.
Sabrina's timing is simply awful. This comes shortly after we witnessed one of the most clearly one-sided refereeing performances in recent memory during the Indiana Fever versus New York Liberty game. And guess who benefits from these supposed no-star treatment calls? That's right, Sabrina's own squad, the New York Liberty.
To alter the damn game. Yes, they altered the game. Not once, not twice, not three, not four, but...
Let's speak about what really happened in that Fever Liberty game, since this is where Sabrina's defense of the refs breaks utterly apart. We're talking about a game where the refs missed over 10 calls against the Liberty. 10 distinct occasions. Human error is not what that is. Not missing a few borderline plays is what that is. That's a systematic pattern of looking the other way when one specific squad commits violations. The Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark were about to produce a spectacular victory that would have made headlines in the sports press. This was no ordinary game of the regular season. This type of triumph changes the course of events and demonstrates that the Fever is appropriate when discussing championship contenders. However, the officials had quite different ideas about how that match would conclude. The most annoying thing was that, from the referee's point of view, these weren't ambiguous calls. We're talking about flagrant violations, clear touch, and obvious fouls that the officials somehow failed to notice. Even casual fans who don't often pay attention to refereeing were criticizing it on social media, making corrupt referees popular topics since it was so egregiously terrible. Sabrina now wants us to think that this is the way the WNBA is. Basketball is hard and rough, and no one is given preferential treatment. Her reasoning, however, breaks down like a house of cards during a hurricane at this point. All season long, the New York Liberty have received complimentary calls, and they are no longer subtle. That one contentious game against Indiana wasn't the beginning of this new trend. Do you recall last year's WNBA championship run? The first prominent figure to criticize the Liberty's preferential whistle treatment was Cheryl Reeve, who has never been one to sugarcoat reality or keep her opinions to herself. When New York was involved, she made it very evident that there was a problem with the way the games were being refereed. And what do you know? She was entirely correct. And history has shown that she was right. The evidence has been mounting all season. It's like an insurmountable pile of evidence. The Liberty consistently get away with plays that any other team in the league would immediately be called for fouls. Their rivals, meanwhile, are being called for even the smallest contact, occasionally for plays that hardly qualify as basketball moves. It's so clear now that even Liberty supporters are admitting it in the comments. They aren't complaining about receiving good treatment, though. However, with her podcast appearance, Sabrina attempts to normalize this subpar officiating by asserting that it is simply the norm for the WNBA. She discusses how players are stronger after years of professional training and conditioning, how guards must get used to not receiving hand check calls, and how the physicality differs from college basketball. Technically speaking, all of this may be true to some extent, but it totally ignores the main point that everyone is attempting to make. The problem isn't that college basketball has changed or that the WNBA is more physical. The problem is that not all teams and players are subject to the same set of rules. When a Liberty player receives a whistle for making little contact, yet Caitlin Clark is thrashed while heading to the basket with no call at all from the officials. It has nothing to do with league physicality on the opposite end of the court. That has to do with consistently biased officiating that gives preference to particular franchises. And since Caitlin Clark has been the face of dubious officiating choices this season, let's talk about her in particular. She's not a rookie who needs time to get used to the speed and brutality of the professional game because this is her second year in the league. On the biggest stages, she has proven herself. She's achieving amazing results. She is attracting unprecedented attention to the WNBA and selling tickets. However, when it comes to receiving valid calls from referees, she is somehow treated as though she doesn't belong on the court. The discrepancy is quite evident when you watch how various players are officiated during games. The defenders who violate these rules can knock Caitlin around, grab her, hold her, and foul her with no repercussions. But on the flip side, if she breathes on a Liberty player or makes any form of defensive contact, the whistle comes out quickly without hesitation. This has nothing to do with becoming used to playing basketball professionally. This is about giving some teams and players special treatment because of things that aren't related to basketball. Given that her club is the main benefactor of this inconsistent officiating throughout the season, Sabrina's remarks seem particularly tone-deaf. When your club wins games and moves in the standings thanks to the referees' dubious calls and non-alls, it's quite simple to defend them. But what if, for a single moment, the shoe was on the other foot? What if the Liberty were consistently thrashed without any calls, while their opponents received every 50-50 whistle? You would think that Sabrina would still be fighting for the officiating and saying that it's simply the way the league does things. From a public relations perspective, the timing of her podcast appearance makes matters worse. This happened right after the huge issues surrounding the Fever game, when supporters were already furious about the officiating and demanded that the league management take responsibility. Sabrina doubles down and tries to defend the entire flawed system rather than admitting that perhaps, just possibly, the officials made some incorrect mistakes and should have done a better job. It's almost as if she had a sneaking suspicion that the Liberty would receive good treatment this season and chose to normalize it beforehand to avoid the inevitable criticism. Well, that's just the way the WNBA operates. This place does not offer star treatment. Everyone is given the same treatment. Regardless of the opponent or the circumstance, her squad is clearly receiving star treatment in every game they play. The worst thing about Sabrina's defense is that it totally discredits the valid grievances that players, coaches, fans, and commentators have been voicing about officiating all season long. Her influence and position allow her to come out and essentially say, "This is fine. This is typical. It should be like this." Without making any adjustments, it provides the league office with justification to keep using the same problematic officiating patterns. Let's be honest about the implications of this for the integrity of the game that we all profess to love. There is a serious issue with competition integrity when supporters can correctly guess which side will receive favorable calls based only on matchups and market size. A fundamental issue with fair competition arises when players must alter their performance entirely based on the team they are playing against, since they are aware that the officials will call the game differently. Over the last several years, the WNBA has put forth a tremendous amount of effort to gain legitimacy and expand its fan base to previously unheard-of proportions. All of that progress is undermined by blatantly biased officiating, which also poses a threat to the league's long-term reputation. Untrustworthy referee rulings that appear to favor some teams are not what new fans who tune in to watch Caitlin Clark or other fascinating athletes want to see. Fair competition that determines the winner based on performance rather than which team receives preferential treatment from officials is what they desire. Additionally, Sabrina's remarks totally disregard the larger picture of what's going on in the league this season. This goes beyond a single contentious game or dubious call that might be dismissed as an example of human mistake. This relates to an obvious officiating tendency that routinely gives preference to particular clubs and markets over others. Referees are treating the New York Liberty well as they play in the nation's largest media market. It's not a coincidence, and neither should it be justified or normalized. In order to maintain the competitiveness and performance of big market teams throughout the season and playoffs, the league has clear financial incentives. Television ratings, sponsorship agreements, and league income all surely benefit from the Liberty making deep playoff runs and contending for titles. However, the legitimacy and long-term viability of sports are harmed when such achievement is attained at the price of fair officiating and competitive integrity. The fact that Sabrina is a typically intelligent player and a good representative of the game in many ways just serves to exacerbate this problem. She could have advocated for improved, more reliable officiating that would have benefited all parties by using her considerable platform and influence. Rather, she chose to uphold a system that is obviously flawed and serves her team's interests at the expense of others. Her remarks have sparked an immediate, fierce, and entirely justified criticism. During games, basketball fans can easily see what's going on the floor, and they're not foolish. They don't require an attempt to deceive them into believing that blatant partiality and preferential treatment are simply part of the game. This whole incident at the professional level brings to light a much larger issue in professional sports. Players and teams are frequently unwilling to criticize refereeing, even when it is obviously incorrect and has an impact on competitive results. Everybody is always afraid of receiving a fine from the league office or of referees taking revenge in subsequent games. However, when something is essentially unfair and jeopardizes the integrity of competition, there are moments when speaking up is absolutely necessary. The saddest aspect is that, by protecting the referees rather than condemning them, Sabrina most likely believed she was being tactful and taking the high road. Rather, she has come across as utterly tone-deaf and disconnected from what fans are truly witnessing and experiencing throughout game viewing. Her remarks have merely fueled the flames and increased the issue around officiating. Fans will now recall Sabrina's remarks supporting this flawed system each time the Liberty receive a favorable call from the referees. People will always bring up Sabrina's attempt to explain why stars in the WNBA are allegedly not called, despite the fact that her team is obviously given preferential treatment whenever Caitlin Clark is criticized without a whistle. At this point, Sabrina must be feeling immediate regret because she knows her remarks have made matters far worse rather than better. She has defended a system that is obviously flawed rather than advocating for fair officiating and protecting the integrity of the game. She has given cover for biased officiating that favors her side at the expense of others, rather than advocating for fair competition that would benefit everyone. Although Sabrina believed she was being shrewd, this backfired horribly. At the worst possible moment, she defended unethical officiating, which only served to intensify the problem. How do you feel about her remarks? Was this bad timing or a well-thought-out move? If you believe that the WNBA needs improved officiating, use the like button. If you want to see more content that highlights the league's issues, subscribe.